NBA Final opening games have sided with the home team favorites as of late, including the obvious neutral court in 2020. But home team and favorites are 8-1 straight up, 7-2 ATS in NBA Finals Game 1. So this stood out to me because, obviously you've got Denver as big home favorites over that 4.5 number. And yesterday I'm like, I don't want to bet against this Heat team. It's a big number, but the history shows maybe you should be on the Nuggets. So I'm curious, what do you guys think here, truth or trend, Joe?
Yeah, in this instance, you have the road team just was pushed to 7 games, right? And you had the best player in Jimmy Butler, who has been dealing with injuries throughout the playoffs. Okay, first off, the straight-up record. That's a nothing to me. Favorites of 4.5 points or more, that means they're supposed to be winning these games. So that doesn't stand out. The 69% ATS is notable, but I don't think it's worthy of a blind bet. Now, the home team is going to be the better team most of the time, right? That's why they have the better record, and that's why they're playing at home. If they're in the NBA Finals, there's a good chance that they've dominated at home all season, and that's the case here with Denver. Now, in a lot of these samples, I'm sure we didn't have a 1 seed going against an 8 seed, but it's I guess it's got some truth. It does, because it all makes sense to me. It all makes sense why you would back the home team. And I'm sure, just guessing, but in a lot of these cases, maybe these home teams, the best team probably has had some shorter series. Maybe they've had some extra rest, something that might be worth diving into. Not a blind bet for me, but it does make sense, and Nuggets are the side that I like for tomorrow.
Fowler, I am a believer in Ricky Fowler. I am on that train, and I am not letting go of it because I have just high conviction that we have still yet to see the best of what Ricky Fowler could produce. For this field, it is a much more field. 11th. He's 11th in the field for strokes gained total. He's top 15 for his short game. But people are going to look at his missed cut at the PGA Championship and like, we were all on Ricky Fowler then, and he didn't produce anything. Fowler missed the cut on the number, and it was his best driving performance that he himself has had this year. It was 4th best in the field. That was his best since October. The problem for him that day was his putting, which is typically the strongest part of his game. It was 8th worst in the field. So his putting performance it was his worst putting performance in his last 11 tournaments. But he more than made up for it last week, and I took him last week as in the top 20, in the top 10, and he finished T6 at the Charles Schwab. But it's just he has largely improved on his game from 2022 season. He played in 22 tournaments last year, and he had 9 missed cuts. If you look at his iron play combined with his short game, he so has the ability here to keep producing some of these results. And I'm just I have high belief that we're going to see another win from Fowler. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but I think it's definitely going to come this year.
I'll tell you some of the biggest positions I took, where I bet it multiple times. They change it 10 cents on me, and I just rebet it. California is a team that I think is really flying under the radar. I bet them over 4.5 wins. And reason being is they were I watched 61 spring games, and they were one of those few teams that I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, I went in this thought process going into it and came out with a completely different thought process. And what I saw was California finally has a playmaker at quarterback. And with the new offensive coordinator, they finally are running a more modern style offense that should help out. Defense has never been a concern under Justin Wilcox. So California is a team that I got multiple positions on. There was, a few other group of fives that I thought were off significantly. My alma mater, in particular, being under 5.5 wins, I thought that was off a win and a half. And keep in mind, I think a half wins were 70 cents. So if you're off 1.5 wins, I mean, do the math. I mean, can you imagine betting a baseball underdog, it's plus 300 and you think it should be close to even money? I mean, that's what some of the value that I was finding in some of these win totals.
My 1 star would be Sergei Bobrovsky at 2-1. I don't necessarily buy the hype from several other hockey pundits that Matthew Tkachuk is definitely on point, or there's more value with him because it's 50-50 depending upon if the Panthers win or not. I think there's a serious possibility that if the Panthers lose, that Bobrovsky can still win the Conn Smythe, in large part because there's not that clear-cut guy for Vegas who should win it, at least not yet. Now, granted, we have another 4 to 7 games left to play, but if, say, the series goes to 6 or 7, and Bobrovsky is, say, losing games 1-0 or 2-1, then he's still going to get some serious consideration. So to me, I think Bobrovsky gets my 1 star. For 2 stars, I like Stone at 15-1. Mark Stone, most expected goals among the Golden Knights. He's certainly due for more. Vegas is doing a lot of its scoring with him on the ice. And at some point, I think the voters will register that. Maybe he's not the one getting the tallies, but the fact that he's always there in the middle of it, I think that's going to matter in terms of this voting. And then for 3 stars, I like Jonathan Marchessault at plus 650. Uncanny ability to string goals together. And so even if he has, a boom or bust kind of performance for the rest of the final, to me, it's those booms that will probably matter a little bit more. So if he's getting 2 goals, 3 points in his good games, and then nothing in his bad games, I think we're going to probably look at the glass half full for him, and plus 650 gives me some real value there, Joe.
I'm one of the guys in college baseball that, is openly talking about betting all year and long shots. There's nothing better or more entertaining for me than just taking a long shot and rooting for him in the tournament. And this year, I think we do have a lot that could get to Omaha, and then you could, find a way to hedge your way out of it. But when I look at a team, there's really 3, like a long shot team to go deep into the postseason, going off of like historic numbers and historic teams that have made it, to super regionals or Omaha. They all have like 3 things in common, and we'll take a look at like the 2016 Coastal Carolina team that won it all, or the 2008 Fresno State team that won it all as a 4 seed. They have, they've all kind of fit the same metrics of they had preseason hype of being ranked in the top 25 or maybe even top 30. They're an old veteran group. And then at the end of the day, like they don't have a specific category that they are dominant in. They're not leading the nation in home runs. They're not leading the nation in RBI, but they have a lot of metrics like stolen bases, doubles, home runs, things like that, hit by pitches, walks. They can beat you in so many different ways so that they don't have to rely upon the long ball or the strikeout on the mound. So like this year, when I'm looking at some long shots, I like teams like Texas A&M that's, pretty gritty. They play in the SEC, so they've been battle tested. Another team is like, Indiana and Iowa out of the Big Ten. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. And then probably my favorite long shot that was last week before the Big 12 tournament, 150-1 was TCU, who ended up winning the Big 12 tournament. I think they're now down in the 75-1 range. But when you look at TCU, the beginning of the season, they were incredible. They got really cold during the middle part of the season, but now they're heating back up, similar to an Ole Miss team last year. So I think TCU is a big team to keep an eye on.